They broadcast and they did like a whatever you call it, radio show.
It was done at Tobacco Wood. And the reason being was the city charged so much for the community.
We are live, okay.
And we want to mention it tonight that maybe as a donation, the city can let the theatre for recording
don't have any other choice.
as a donation.
That's
Yeah,
the
most stuff. And they
Give
know
us
it.
some money in our coffers
I had
so that we
spoken.
can do other things.
I had spoken to Alan about it.
Numerous times.
Well, back in December, when I toured it with Q,
That's right. And all they do
he
is.
said that he'd be more than willing to take a look at it. He said no one's read the thing in 3 years. That he'd be happy to.
Although I'm not as astute as Cindy.
Readdress the fees and to just generally take a look at it.
That's right, and we need to get rid of this. Little theatre's been around for 40
Unless you
years.
have a situation where
He had mentioned, he had mentioned too
you can't not have.
that it wasn't a prepay fee. It was he thought it was deducted from box office sales, whatever the fee is.
Now, we have to pay the fee.
So what I would maybe consider motioning is changing that so that whatever fees are incurred are deducted, or not, they're not prepaid, they're deducted from box office fees.
What, I mean, what percentage of the box
No,
office?
just whatever the fee is comes out of whatever.
Sometimes we don't make enough to pay that.
Well, I mean,
See,
I'm
we
fine.
use
I'm
our-
fine.
we
Yeah,
use our point of sale things.
yeah.
It goes straight into our bank account.
I meant like in the future when Granville
Well,
County
yeah.
is packing it out. That's a
I just want to get, yeah,
yeah.
that's right.
At that point.
And this is going to be,
The times that I've been there in the past, they've had several successful shows.
they've had several successful shows, but what people don't
Oh, we're
realise
ready
is
to
we
go.
put a show on,
Okay.
like Miracle on 34th Street and things. We have to pay over $1,000 for the rights to that show. So that has to come out of box, you see.
Mm-hmm.
We have to pay rights on everything on TV. And I don't think a lot of people know that.
No, I didn't realize until Q explained it to me last.
Yeah, it's
Christmas.
expensive.
We ready to roll?
Yep.
Alrighty then. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I would like to welcome you to the beginning of February and to the City of Oxford Board of Commissioners agenda meeting. Today is Monday, February 6th, 2023, and it is 5:32 p.m. and we are assembled here in the Commissioners Boardroom of City Hall. And if you have a cell phone or other electronic device, I would ask that you mute it or turn it off at this time. And the next item on the agenda is city business. Item A, consider approving a letter of support for the NCDOT RAISE grant. The NCDOT Transportation Mobility and Safety Division is sponsoring a RAISE grant application to improve signalized intersections to include pedestrian countdown, signal heads, marked crosswalks, and other pedestrian improvements in several towns and cities in North Carolina. Oxford is one of the locations selected. This grant application is part of a larger program by NCDOT to improve pedestrian safety at signalized intersections across the state. NCDOT prioritized communities based on pedestrian crash history, demographic data, and the number of signals lacking pedestrian accommodations. The attached one-pager summarizes the type of improvements proposed and the full list of cities where NCDOT hopes to implement the improvements if awarded the grant. Attached is also a list of intersections chosen by NCDOT for the pedestrian safety improvements. We have attached a letter of support as requested by NCDOT to send back to them by Friday, February 10th. And that support information is in attachment 5A. And staff recommends approval of the attached letter of support for my signature. What is the pleasure of the board?
Motion?
Motion by Commissioner Khan. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Just one question.
Yes, sir.
Did they consult with the police department, Oxford Police Department? It says the DOT recommended
Right.
it.
I
Did
think,
they?
Ms. Hart, do you know whether they consulted with the police department?
Not, but I would imagine that they got all this data
Okay.
estimate that were reported.
All right.
Okay, and.
I don't know
Mr. Carroll?
specifically whether they did or not. This was just directly a letter that they're putting in a raise grant, and these intersections, and they're looking for just a letter of support from the city.
Okay,
Okay.
that's fine.
Yes.
Just one
Commissioner?
question though, regarding Abbey Road and the Oxford Loop. Yeah.
I had that question
Yeah,
too.
Okay. I don't recall what's even out there.
The
Or maybe it's the potential of what will be out there?
State Employees Credit Union, there are no sidewalks,
Yeah.
There is development purported for that area.
Yeah,
We did,
there is,
I
yeah.
believe we did a rezoning for that, general area.
it's
But I thought it was
higher.
further, yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was
In-
further down.
It is, but there is,
So I
there's,
guess they may be speculating that there may be more foot traffic once that development is established to the credit union.
could be.
I did send a comment exactly to that effect to our planning director. Do you have, because it does seem like there's no pedestrian traffic there.
It does seem that way, as Mr. Harrell, they had mentioned that these are what they have identified. So this is an NCDOT project, and they're just asking for our support. And, you know, as Mr. stated, we do have a 228 townhome development in the Oakland District, along with 330-some single-family homes on down the outer loop.
But and I checked the map, but the townhomes is at another intersection. Do we even know if there's an opportunity to suggest two alternatives to those two intersections? When I was looking at the map, we don't have a proposed one for Spring and Martin Luther King, where I believe we actually had a fatality. Or East Industry Drive at Lewis, where are we not trying to make sidewalk go all the way down there?
Are those state intersections?
Spring and Martin Luther King, yes, that absolutely is. Lewis and East Industry Drive, and, you know, I don't, yes, Commissioner.
And the same thing with Linden Avenue and Industry Drive, is that right there at the McDonald's and the Hardee's
Yeah.
and the, that area right there?
Yeah.
And that one, don't we already have that there? Don't we already have signal light, the timer there?
We do have,
One.
signalized timers that they install.
Right. So what would this add to that intersection?
I don't know if they're talking about something, more exclusive type of device. I mean, this is something that they put out.
Cause it's not on all four corners, and nor is there a crosswalk on all four corners.
Oh,
But-
maybe that's what they wanna do then.
But then they use the word Industry Drive and Linden Avenue, I thought that was MLK.
That is MLK.
Exactly, I mean, so, and I thought maybe, okay, well, maybe I need to go farther down or someplace else. Anyway.
But a lot of the questions we're asking, Ms. Hart, you can't even answer because this came
Yeah,
straight
we-
from DOT, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
And this is their theory and their suggested, so.
Madam Mayor? if I
Yes,
may.
sir.
So, looking at this earlier this week, kind of the same thought process. I happened to have, sort of fortuitously had a conversation with some folks at DOT in an event last week, and there's an opportunity. I was going to email the city manager. There is an opportunity for the DOT government liaison to come visit Oxford and do a field trip. I suggested it might be a good idea with these projects, with ongoing projects that we have with DOT that may be in the spirit of building good relationships and having clarity that if their government liaison office would be willing to come up and walk or do a field trip to Oxford, that might be of some benefit. So that email introduction, I don't mean to be premature with my comment, but hopefully in the next week or so, you'll have an email in your box, or the city manager will, rather.
So, we of course don't want to impede the process
That's
of
right.
Right.
No.
submitting our support. Did Commissioner Lumpkins, did you?
Sorry, you finish.
But at the same time, I think there's so we don't, I know the board doesn't want to slow that down and want to do a letter, but there would be kind of an interest if it's even possible at some point down the road to discuss the actual intersection.
I think that you could do that. Their process though, is, as you can see, there's a timeline, February
Right,
28th.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think that the letter of support would be prudent to do, and then we could contact them and say, here are some intersections that we have a concern about, and could that be a consideration if you get the grant?
Right,
Okay,
yeah, thank you, Commissioner Lumpkins.
and including what Commissioner Combs said, in terms of somebody coming down and walking.
Yep, and I'll let you guys figure that part out. I just suggested that it might be a good idea if they did.
You don't want to see it. I mean, I was just gonna suggest the same thing. I mean, the letter says proposed changes, so I feel like we
Just proposed it.
should be able to, do some kind of addendum to kind of guide them to what we think.
Right, excellent. Okay, so any further discussion?
I have one more quick
Yes,
question.
sir.
So I noticed the letter was addressed to like the federal level. Is this for NCDOT to send to the United States Department of Transportation? I'm a little confused.
It's a federal grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation. So it's being sent to the secretary of that.
So NCDOT is,
Applying for
Applying
funding
for
for
Yes,
multiple
yes,
cities.
yeah.
Great. Any further questions? Further questions down this way? All in favor of our sending the letter of support, signal so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? And that motion carries unanimously. And I just noticed we have Commissioner Bridges has joined us. Wonderful, thank you so much. And that I failed at the beginning of the meeting to say that he would be late and that Commissioner Bullock would not be able to make it tonight, and he sends his regrets. And so good to see everybody. Okay, then we move forward, and thank you for that discussion. Let's move forward to setting the agenda for next week. The Tuesday session takes place on Valentine's Day. And so we'll move to that. And general openings as usual, delegations, employee of the month. Bravo to the finance department, Huck, for receiving the certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting. And we will need to give him great acclaim because that will be his last official board meeting with us. And presentation by Brandon Klenke. Do we know how to say that? Where's Amy? Amy, just so that I make sure, is that last name said Klenkes? Do we know?
I think it's just Clank.
Clanks?
Clank.
Okay, thank you. Let me write that down. And, okay, this is important on publishing a regulation on the lead, the regulation to control lead and copper in drinking water, which is known as the lead and copper rule. And then a presentation by our planning director, Cheryl Hart. Are there any questions on any of these items? Okay. Public comments, public hearings, city business. Consider waiving an estimated $400 in interest on retroactive tax bills. This is when Granville County failed to include the Oxford Parking District on their tax bills for 2022 due to a clerical error, and we'll be sending them retroactive tax bills, and we are requested to waive the interest because that was an error. Are there any questions on this item?
Well, I guess my question is, who's actually paying that bill?
Excuse me?
Who actually is paying that bill? The citizens or the county, the city, or?
It is the merchants in the parking district, the municipal service district, where they pay an additional tax. Mr. Harrell, am I correct on that?
I'm gonna let Hawk handle that.
That is correct. This is a special tax area assessed, and it's been going on for quite some time. We collect on, and then the city disperse those payments to them around May or June. Typically, they receive $16,000 to $17,000 per year. This year, Monroe County is totally missed.
They missed it.
It's 0.1.
That's right, it's 10 cents on the $100 valuation of the merchants that are in that
In
district.
addition to whatever
And
other.
Exactly,
I got you.
exactly.
You've talked to me about that, Hawk. I'm catching up. Okay, I'm good.
So the interest that comes along with the error, she's asking that the board would waive that, and it comes out to be around $400. So we can go on from there.
Any further, thank you, Mr. Ung. Are there any further questions on this item?
No.
Okay, then we'll move forward to consider adopting a resolution approving the use of electronic signatures for signing city checks. So the UNC School of Government allows as an alternative to manual signatures, signature machines, signature stamps, or similar devices for signing checks or drafts. And these are used widely in local units across the state. And our software can also allow for electronic signatures on checks or drafts. And the city manager would sign a register of the checks that would be electronically signed. Do any of you have any questions on this item at this time for the manager? Okay. Consider approving an agreement with Diligent Community to begin the agenda and minute process electronically in the amount of $7,500 initially, and then with a 5% increase per year. This is for software that will ensure that our citizens are informed, engaged, and have easy access to community resources. Historically, we've used manual processes, leading to gaps and some inefficiencies, and sometimes an inability to address inclusion and engagement. And so this is next generation modern governance, and shows a bullet list of what we would be subscribing to. Do any of you all have any questions on this item?
I have one.
Yeah, I want to.
I'll let you go first.
Work orders and that type of stuff, would any of those things be part of this?
No, ma'am, the work orders would be a separate application. This is strictly for making it more efficient to put together the agenda for the board. And more efficient for staff to put the agenda together. We're basically just doing it by hand now and sending it to the clerk, who's then assembling this. This will allow a department head to literally sit at the screen and enter their narrative, and then the clerk would then take it from there, and it would actually put the agenda packet together. It also will allow for board members to go in to read it. It allow for public access to the agenda. It's a standard practice that's being used in most communities now. The only thing that I would like to add, if I could, Madam Mayor, is that, and this is on me, it might be the question of whether or not this should go to a committee first. If not, then we will also be providing some additional information next Tuesday night about other types of apps that are out there and what those costs are. but I just wanted to put that out if you might want to go back to committee with it.
Can I ask
Yes,
one more
Commissioner.
follow-up question?
Yes.
Does this mean then that we can interface with something other than our phones,
Yes.
and that it will be like an iPad or something that's bigger and we can read it and see it and not have to make it work?
Ultimately, you could go with the iPad if you wanted to, or you could use, we could still produce a paper copy as well, either way.
If you have an iPad or a tablet, I believe you'd be able to use it on your personal, but we could look at getting city-owned iPads.
And I like that idea because you need the UDO right there, you need this, you need the comprehensive plan, you need all of that stuff, and my phone is full.
I have a question from Commissioner Bridges and Khan.
The only thing I was gonna ask was the implementation period, how fast can we get that implemented? What's their turnaround time?
The turnaround time typically is they have to come in and train the staff to how to use it. Turnaround time is typically 90 days, typically.
Okay, so like in and around 12 weeks is, okay.
Yes.
Commissioner Bridges.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is not out of the norm because even our court systems are moving towards e-filing and electronic. So this is going to come whether we like it or not. My question is, will this affect any jobs?
Well, it will
It'll
certainly.
make mine easier.
Affect any
Well,
job?
well,
no,
the
it will not.
question relates to whether or not would this lessen the need of certain employees.
No, sir, it will not.
It will not.
It will
Okay.
not. Will not
Oh.
affect anything like that.
Okay.
There is another piece to it that's nice too, is that right now, there's not the ability very easily to pull from past agendas and bring something forward that you all want to bring forward. This is gonna store everything, and you can bring it forward very easily and not have to worry about reproducing it slowly.
Great.
Okay.
Excellent. Further questions? We had a lot of questions this end. Questions this end?
Sounds like the right-
So, I had already mentioned this, I would be interested in knowing a little bit more about some of the other companies that were considered, just so that if we're looking at doing a multi-year thing, that has a built-in 5%
Increase, yeah.
increase, that we at least have a sense of what else was out there before you all narrowed it. Yes, ma'am?
Can I take this one? I've been researching this sort of thing since 2018.
Okay.
I've looked at Civic Plus, Granicus, iCompass, which this Diligent was iCompass. They changed their name. And I have put out today a request for updated pricing
Mm-hmm.
from Civic Plus and Granicus. What we're looking at is the latest on the market,
Mm-hmm.
but they are all running about the same price, and they all do about the same thing. So, but yes, I have requested those numbers for you next week.
Well, that would be awesome.
And is it limited just to agendas? I mean, are we looking at it being able to accomplish other tasks that?
We're only looking at the agenda and minute part of it, and the interface to the website where it'll go out quicker. There are lots of other wonderful qualities that these programs have, but the more you buy, the more expensive it gets.
How does this help with the minutes? And that's probably a really stupid question, but.
It will actually take the agenda, and whereas I take what we have on our agenda,
Mhm.
and then I turn it into, instead of consider a resolution,
Mhm.
I turn it into resolution adopted.
And
It will
import it
automatically pull it over there and do
Okay.
it,
Okay,
so.
great, okay. Wonderful, well then, yeah, if there, you could include, because I think that's great for the public to see that, any of your, you know, a line or two of your back work into the narrative for
Mhm.
next week, that would be awesome. Yeah, sounds great.
Anyway, you
Yes.
could also, in your research what it would cost the city to purchase tablets or whatever for the board members that you turn back in when you,
I actually did that at one point, but
so that we would all be on the
yeah,
same type of equipment,
I could
because
do that.
I know that some equipments interface with this program better than they do that program, so that we would all be able to interface with the same thing.
I could do that.
You know, like the Apple may do something that the what's the other phone? Android don't do, or the Android do something that the Apple, so that we would all have the same capabilities. So.
I could do that. In fact, I have done that.
But not necessarily for next week.
Oh no,
Oh,
Okay.
not
Just to
next
be
week,
clear.
okay.
but if you
Okay.
join, if you do get it, you know, just
Okay, throw it in there.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, excellent. Any further questions?
No.
Okay. Okay, excellent. Item D, consider adopting the capital project ordinance for the Carr Lake Regional Water System Treatment Plant Improvement and Expansion Project. At the December meeting, we approved a capital project ordinance for $5 million, but the correct amount should have been $6 million. And therefore, we need to void the $5 million ordinance and replace it with one for $6 million. Do any of y'all have any questions on this item? Okay.
Soon as done.
And we go to item E, consider awarding the 2023 concessionaire contracts for the Oxford Athletic Park Complex. And that is, they've accepted informal bids for the exclusive license to provide concessions for the complex. And they were broken down into two categories, frozen dessert and savory. They were advertised in the Ledger and the Dispatch and open Friday, February 3rd. The highest bidder for the savory category is Angela and Ray Allen, and Ryan Ball, Kona Ice for the frozen dessert category. Do any of you all have any questions about this item? And the recommended action is to award separately each one of these contractors an appropriate category.
I need one comment.
Yes, sir.
Is Tina happy with these two? I mean, it's your project, so are you happy with that?
They've done it the last, well, they were doing it during COVID, and then they did it last year, and we didn't have as many tournaments as we would have liked, but they did a great job, so.
All right. Okay.
Great, yeah, I don't know how I missed that you've had separate ones, but that's working great. Okay, and we move on to the consent agenda, pretty straightforward. Any questions about that? And before we go into closed session, I will then ask if there is anything to add. I'll start with, oh, excuse me.
There was a discussion
Oh,
item from.
yeah.
We got the board got a letter today, we passed it out as dated today, and it has to do with, yoga instructor wanting to use the stage here in City Hall. But the current suggested rental agreement is 4 hours for $150, and she's looking to rent the space for 2 hours at $75. And talking with the clerk and doing some research, the board in 2018 adopted the agreement that is used to rent the stage. However, in looking at the records, the actual fees that were quoted were not actually adopted. So we don't really have the fees in place adopted by the board. And so my question to the board is, do you want to bring this forward till the 13th, or to send it to committee and then bring it back for the March meeting? The only thing that's in the letter is that she's hoping to get it done sooner than later so that she can get in some yoga classes before her summer work starts. I'm at the pleasure of the board as how you wanna handle it.
I think we should allow, and the thing's sitting there not being used. So I personally have no problem if whatever the agreed upon rate is, if anything, to allow somebody to do that for that short term. And I think that we definitely should probably reevaluate what our fee structure is, and our rental agreement is for the theater, so that we definitely want to make this thing a crown jewel. I mean, there's no reason that theater should not be rented way more often than it is, for a variety of things. I think we need to probably look at that and figure out how we can accommodate more events in that venue. So that might be a good starting point to do that.
And I believe this actually, she's not even asking for a change of structure.
Yeah.
She's quoted that the rate is 150 for 4 hours, but we're requiring a minimum of 4 hours. And she's just requesting to cut it in half because she doesn't need 4
Yeah.
hours.
Right.
So that's, yes,
Yeah.
I think I saw another comment or question down in this direction, or?
Oh, I've got some more comments a bit later about
Okay, so we'll give you any, yes,
Can we just-
Commissioner?
So you're saying there's really no rate
There's technically not, because if there were a rate, it would be in your ordinance book along with the other
and it
fees.
isn't.
So if you'd like me to bring it forward next week, we can bring it forward as an amendment to the budget ordinance, and you could set the hours however you wanna set the hours. If you wanna
Okay.
break it down and say it's rentable at 2 hours, that'd be fine.
She doesn't say how often she wants to use it.
She did call me about this, and the additional information that I have to add is that she is gonna be opening a studio in downtown
Right.
Oxford.
Mhm.
So she's investing in her community in that way, and this is just to allow her to generate interest for her classes by offering things on a regular basis to keep people kind of
Right.
jazzed up and excited, so that when she opens the studio, they'll just
Right.
slide. So it's kind of for during the period before she opens.
And
Okay.
she's only asking for one time to see what kind of interest it
All right.
generates, yeah.
All right.
Well, I'll bring it back for the 13th or 14th then?
Yeah, be good.
Okay.
Okay, that works
But it's for
everybody?
her,
Right.
for her.
Yeah.
Yes,
We'll go ahead and
Yeah.
work it out. with
Yes.
her At this rate.
that's what I'm hearing,
Yeah,
yes.
that's right.
Yeah,
And then we can always have another
Let's try and help
discussion.
someone.
as to going forward.
Let's try and help
But-
someone.
But even though it wasn't adopted, what was the fee that we initially had talked about?
That was what you initially talked about.
It
There
was 150
was the 4 hours at $150.
But it was never
per hour, or?
No,
No,
For the
no,
whole,
for the whole 4 hours.
Block.
150
Wow.
for the block,
Mhm.
a 4-hour block, yeah.
we're giving it away.
So are we saying yes right now, or are we gonna talk about it? at the
well,
retreat?
that's a question as well.
It needs an ordinance amendment, so a budget ordinance amendment, so I would recommend we bring it back to you next Tuesday.
Okay.
We can vote on it.
And then you can
Can we
vote on it
also,
then.
can we also
With
do
this-
can we also suggest a motion, for, I don't even know what committee would take this on, the finance committee, really, but have a review process, and then if we need to make, I guess, changes, or, because we haven't reviewed it since 2018? Is that what we're saying?
That's right.
2018 was the last time that this was reviewed?
The
halfway
last
adopted.
time it was reviewed was 2018 apparently.
Yeah. So I would it make sense, would it be cleaner if we bring this back next week, we vote essentially to allow this individual to use it at the agreed upon rate, and then we go back and review, whatever committee is responsible for it, go back and review this particular, I want to call it contract or service agreement.
What I'll put in your packet will be comprehensive. It will have
Okay.
what was there in 18, what we talked about tonight and the budget ordinance amendment, so.
Thank you.
But is that giving her an answer?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely give her an answer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and, yeah, this needs to be followed up with her, but my other question is, this rate in relationship to other rentals and what is the process of someone actually renting, you know, the auditorium versus Tina's facilities? What, I mean, do people come through you, or is there another process to rent the auditorium?
No, we don't rent the auditorium, that's probably gonna be Public Works and
Okay, I mean, but don't you guys agree that then we should set a hierarchy on our facilities that we're offering so that there's a stepping stone for the utilization of the better facilities versus the smaller ones, whatever, because that was one of my concerns when REC brought their increased rates and times forward. You wanna have a sense of equity and inclusion and a justification for the rate for this is here and the rate for this is there. I would think this auditorium would be our premium rate, just because how big it is and how many various things you can do in there and the money-making potential that is possibly there. I mean, 'cause versus just renting Public Works building for a family reunion for 4 hours. It's not for $150. It wasn't. I mean, and I'm just saying, that needs to be taken into consideration. What we're renting other city properties for.
So, I think that is certainly an important point. So it goes back to, does the board have the ability to make a one-time exception to what it's currently stated? To
Absolutely.
say, rather than requiring what we currently have on the books, which is a minimum of 4 hours, she's not asking for a rate change, she's asking to reduce the minimum of 4 hours to 2 hours at the same proportional cost. Does the board have the ability to make that decision without doing an amendment to the ordinance and then continuing forward with a larger discussion which has value?
Since it's not in the ordinance, if all you're going to do is make a decision for this one user and then look at the bigger picture down the road, maybe during the budgetary process, you could do that, yes.
Okay, so what would you all like to do with respect to that? Do you want that on the budget, on the agenda next week without considering a full look at the fees and your questions, Commissioner Gilreath, or do you want to go for the whole amendment to the budget ordinance?
I think if we can.
Quick decision.
Yeah, let's do a
Yeah.
quick decision
Yeah,
now. We can
quick
look at it in
decision,
the
then we can
budget.
look at it as part of the budget.
Yeah.
Right.
As long as we have the opportunity to take a look at it and make sure that it still makes sense. That's
Yeah,
all
but-
that really
But the
matters.
question is, who's really looking at it? Is it the budget? Is it properties? Is it, in my mind, it should be properties or, Tito may say no, but, I mean, in my
Properties
mind,
is
that's where
under-
it should be.
It would, in my mind, it would be a joint committee of the budget and Public Works.
Public Works
Or
or
property.
property?
Properties.
I'm sorry,
Properties.
property, yes.
Okay,
Okay.
Okay.
well done. So we're straight?
For her, we're making
We're gonna have that
Okay.
vote just on this one
one.
request.
Right,
Yeah.
okay,
Without doing any ordinance amendments.
good.
Okay,
Public Works.
excellent. Now we move forward to,
Reminders.
We've got some more stuff.
okay, hang on just a second.
Right now.
Discussion, oh yeah, thank you very much. Discussion regarding the March, that's because I was tied up in my other, regarding the March 6th agenda meeting time. So this is in relationship to, I believe it is the Chamber banquet, which is on the same
Day.
day still at Van Scramble Community College?
No,
it
Is that
Beano?
Beano Oasis.
Beano, okay,
Beano
so
Oasis.
there's an additional thing that it's a little bit further down the road. So, and their event starts, I think, at 5:30 with sit-down program at 6:30, is that correct?
That's correct.
So, right now, everybody in this group would be in a position where we really need to say, we're sorry, but we don't know if we can attend, if we're going to be here. So is there an interest in maybe moving our meeting to 5 o'clock, rather than 5:30 for that one night, so that if we have a short meeting, we're able to get on down the road and attend whoever is interested, the chamber banquet?
I'd be fine with moving it.
Just
Moving the
Time.
moving the time or moving the day. I mean,
Oh, well, there's that too.
yeah. I
Think
mean,
about that.
Yeah, I think
I'm happy
we
to
should
start-
we should attend the banquet if we
Yeah.
can. I mean, it's just support for the chamber. I think we should do that.
Right. Well, it certainly is a nice option if people are interested.
Yeah.
So what is your interest? Would you prefer to go earlier, start at 5 and keep it on the same day, or keep it at 5:30 and shift the day?
I'd sort of
I'd say-
shift.
I'd say start early.
I would say start earlier too.
Start early.
Okay, so we're gonna go through, because my memory is the worst in the world, we're just gonna go down the line. So Commissioner Khan, you said shift the day,
Shift the day to Tuesday, perhaps.
okay? And then Commissioner Gilreath,
Just the time.
you'd say the time. Commissioner Toby,
Adjust the time.
time. Commissioner Bridges,
Adjust the time.
time. Mayor Pro Tem,
Time.
and Commissioner Lumpkins.
Time is good.
Time's good, okay, so time has it.
Guys got me.
You know,
I'd like to announce I won't be here on the 6th. I have another engagement.
That's too
No, it's
bad.
fine.
Okay, well, we hope you'll make it to the next one. Mayor Pro Tem Howard Herring, this was one of the rules that I learned from him right earlier in the day, was whatever the vote is, I go home and sleep well at night.
Right.
So there you have it, okay, excellent. And then we have, discussion regarding fireworks for the Rotary Club Gala celebration, and so I'm gonna toss it off to our fire chief.
Good afternoon. First of all, I apologize for coming to you this late in the game, but I just got the application this past Friday. Our city ordinance empowers me to approve a permit for pyrotechnics 10 days prior to the shoot, but General Statute 14-413 says that I must approach the board for permission to do so. So that is why I'm here tonight. It takes a while to plan this, and this event is being planned for the 25th of this month. They intend to have a fireworks exhibit on the 25th. It's going to be at Thorndale Oaks. They're going to use the old golf course as the venue for doing this. I've already measured the setbacks and making sure that the venue actually fits the requirements for the state and for the NFPA. Everything will fit, but I need your approval to move forward with that. So, anybody familiar with the gala they're going to have?
I've got no problem with it.
Familiar with it, but, so what's the pleasure of my colleagues?
Motion.
Motion.
Motion, we have a concomitant motion, I think, from the entire group down on my left. Any discussion on that motion?
Yeah, as long as he's comfortable with it, as long as he's on.
We will be I talked to the actual person that's doing the fireworks display, and we will be making notification to the neighbors. If necessary, we will be, since it is a dead end road adjacent to the shoot, if necessary, we use Code Red to advise them for their pets and anybody that's sensitive from the hearing. Also, we will have a standby unit there for anything that gets out of hand as far as the debris field that comes down from the fireworks shoot. But I just need your permission or to issue the permit.
It's gonna be at Thorndale Oaks. I bet there are gonna be some people, I personally am a real fan of fireworks. And I still remember with great joy when the county did them for its anniversary down at Hicksfield. And we just laying a blanket on the field, and it was just fabulous. So hopefully people will be happy about that. And so that was your question. Further questions for the chief?
Good.
Okay, I would like to say how wonderful it is to know that you're so thorough in acting on this, and it's to see everybody just know that you've got it in hand. So all in favor of allowing the Rotary to put on fireworks with the support of our intrepid fire department at Thorndale Oaks on Saturday, the 25th of February, signal so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? That motion carries unanimously, and that is because the Rotary is celebrating, the Rotary Club of Oxford is celebrating its 100th anniversary. So that's a big deal, and Bart Cleary has been working diligently to plan this event, and if anybody is interested in coming, let me know, and we'll talk about tickets. And so wonderful, thank you. So now we move forward to additional commentary, unless, Madam Clerk, am I missing anything?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
Did you do the reminders?
Oh, I will go ahead and do the reminders, and then we'll go to additional board input. Okay, Love Local Month now, support our small businesses downtown. Lisa, do you have anything that you want to add to that comment?
Just in take part in the local challenge that's happening in some of the downtown businesses and filling out the hearts. The business with the most hearts in the window gets a $100 Visa gift card, and everyone who fills out a downtown card is eligible to win downtown dollars.
Okay, great. Our businesses need us. Okay, we have from DODC design and promotions meetings coming up. February 10th and 11th, of course, we will be at our retreat at the barn at Vino, working hard and working together. And DOEDC Downtown Hearts Drawing, which is related to exactly what Alyssa Blair was speaking about, Kids Night Out through our rec department at Hicks Gym on the 10th as well. Our regular meeting on Valentine's Day, and then thinking about hot sauce, and that's amazing. A lot coming up, and Mary Potter Club hosting Gordon Jefferson, who is the country boy, at George Shaw Museum on the 19th at 3 p.m. Does anybody have anything that they would like to add to that list? Okay, then we go to Commissioner Khan. Anything that you would like to add or bring up?
Only my sincere gratitude to the police department for an incident that took place on the 17th of January. Never personally had to call 911 for my own protection, so it was a very humbling experience, and the officers who responded conducted themselves in a, I think call it a professional manner would not be doing it justice, but they handled the situation extremely well, and I was proud of how they handled it, given that a few days later we saw what happened in Memphis, and it was a dangerous situation, and they handled it professionally. We had a citizen who was having a mental crisis, and they went above and beyond. So thank you for what you guys do and keeping everyone safe.
Wonderful. Thank you. Commissioner Gilreath.
Thank you.
Nothing? Okay, Commissioner Tovey.
I have two little things. One is to do with our theatre. Granville Little Theatre have not put on a production for almost 3 years now in our auditorium. So their finances are a bit depleted, to say the least. I thought it would be nice if this board could make a gesture and a donation. They want to put on a production in May here, but the cost is really prohibitive at the moment. Can we waive the fee for their rehearsal and cost for this first production so that it would give them some money in their coffers so that they can produce more. After COVID, I mean, it's really hit them hard.
So, and I think the clarifier on that is that they were regularly using the
They were regularly
auditorium
using it.
until everything shut down with
That's right.
COVID, and we've
Yeah.
just not reopened that
Yeah.
space really. And so they haven't been doing
No.
anything other than, I think,
I think they've done a couple of
script
ones
reads
at
at
script
Tobacco
reads
Wood.
at Tobacco Wood, and we want to get back into it. And I say we because I'm on the board, and I'll put that out there. I'm on the board of the Granville Little Theatre. So, and I'm the treasurer, so I know exactly what their finances are like. People don't realise that when we put on the production, you have to buy the rights to that play or that musical, and it sometimes costs a lot of money, for $1,000, $1,500. So that comes out of the box office. So when you add on to that the fee for the theatre for the rehearsals and the production, it's prohibitive at times. So I'm just asking the board if they would do that for this one production, and then we can talk about the fees and things at the retreat with the budget. Right? So I'm asking the board to do that if they can.
would you, colleagues, would you have interest in having this added to the agenda on next week and maybe having somebody from Granville Little Theatre
I'll get someone to come.
and make a presentation? Would
Right.
that be, if you have a desire to hear more, would that be
Yes.
an
Yeah.
appropriate next step?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yep.
General
I think we need to
consensus?
know how much, how many times they wanna use it, right?
Well, this is for the first time. You know, this will be the first time. After that, we can talk about fees and things like that. I just want to give them a little boost so that they got some money in the bank so they can put on more productions. It's been around over 40 years, this theatre.
So, and I think what Commissioner Lumpkins is referring to is that when we do that, it also involves how many days, is that what you're asking about? How many days would they be coming into the auditorium for rehearsals and so
then,
on?
that's right, that's right.
Okay, is that what you were looking for?
Yes, just as much information as we can get.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I get someone to come and give a presentation.
Okay, Commissioner Gilreath, I see you thinking.
She's thinking hard.
Well, no, it just goes back to the same question that I'd asked earlier.
That's right.
That we have to be inclusive and equitable and across the board. And we've had other community groups to come and make requests for assistance, and we say no. Since I've been on the board, we've said no. So I just want us to be clear on what we're doing and for whom we're doing it, and to be consistent in how we do whatever it is that we choose to do. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm saying. And I know one group, sometimes some of the requests aren't at the same level or anything, but in the past, we have said that it is not the city's responsibility to fund community-based activities. Granted, the community does benefit from it, but so does some of the tutoring, some of the citizens benefit from the tutoring and participating in the ball stuff and whatever, the athletics or whatever. So I just want us to be cognitive of that. My husband was one of the first African Americans to participate in Granville Little Theatre as a high school student. I've seen most of the plays that they put on. So yes, it's a valuable tool, a valuable venue for this community. It is. It's nice to be able to pay $10 and have your ticket waiting for you at the box office, and then come jump in the shower and get down in the street in 5. That's nice, and they're wonderful productions. They really are. But we must do it
Across the board.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, excellent. Mr. Harold, does that work for you from your
Yes.
perspective?
Yes,
Okay,
so-
excellent. Commissioner Toby, did you have anything else, or was that it?
And I just wanted to, how are we getting on with this police report?
I'm sorry.
How are we getting on with the police report? How near are we to,
We
to
are,
being able to read it?
I'm hoping that we are, about 10 days out.
10 days,
Yes, sir.
okay,
From completion?
on completion. before
Or
we get-
starting.
so we get it.
For
No,
completion.
it's for completion.
Okay,
Thank you.
excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Bridges.
Yeah, well, Commissioner Gilreath and Commissioner Tovey, made comments that sort of, made me think a little bit, because I have to admit that when Commissioner Tovey made his comments about Little Theater, I actually thought about my daughters and how they participated in a lot of the plays and how much I enjoyed coming to those plays and just seeing the young people doing some positive things. And we certainly want to encourage that. We want to encourage theater and then the entertainment part of our community, because oftentimes that's the only time we really get together.
That's right.
You know, as a community, there's a great mix of folks that come to these functions. So I see the positive aspects of that. But I also, it's interesting, when Commissioner Gilreath made her comments, I thought about some of the individuals that stood right there at that podium and asked our board to do certain things to assist in some of the projects they were trying to do, tutoring our kids, second chance felons who Reverend Betts was trying to help out and get them back on track, but certainly not this manager, but one manager said, well, we're not about that.
Yeah.
And we have to think about how our citizens' tax dollars are spent. And it seemed like it generally applied to programs that help certain portions of our community. And so I agree with you, Commissioner Gilreath, but I also agree with you, Commissioner Tovey.
I
We
think you're
should
right.
not do it for certain groups and not others.
No, I agree with you.
And so
I felt bad for both.
I feel kind of in betwixt and a rock and a hard place. I don't know. But in any event, I remember those discussions, and it was very challenging for me when, you know, I had a minister wanting to help prior felons get back on their feet. And we decided we would not give them money. So, let me also, and I know you want to say something, Mayor, but that's fine.
No, but this is your
you know,
spot.
I do want to say this, that, you know, I work in the court system, so I probably hear things that some of others don't hear. But I am hearing that, and I don't see the police chief tonight, but I am hearing that we may be losing a couple of more officers. And I don't know, Mr. Manager, if you've heard anything. And they are experienced officers. One definitely leaving within the next week or so, and then possibly another officer leaving. And that, to me, is concerning. And I do not know what the answer is. I thought we had put some things in place with the increase in starting salaries, and we certainly have given bonuses and taken some steps to try to shore up the situation in our police department. And, you know, we've already lost a good number of officers. And for somebody to say to me that we will possibly lose 2 more experienced police officers, I just feel like we need to do something to see if we can prevent that. You know, because the cost of retraining some officers and things like that, I think we need to take that into consideration as we try to see if we can hold on to these officers. And I, you know, I didn't get any details, but I know that there are 2 experienced officers who are going to be leaving us and going elsewhere. And so I think we need to have a public safety / personnel meeting real soon. And I don't know if I've heard some numbers that could probably keep these officers. And it's certainly something we can discuss further. I know that we don't set a good precedent in situations like this, but at some point, we really have to take serious what's happening to our community and the police department. And we got some funds. There's some ARPA money. There's, I keep hearing how wonderful our budget looks, and how physically responsible we have been. But I think we need to take some quick action to see if we can do something to hold on to these experienced officers. And I don't know if that takes a special meeting, have the police chief and the manager involved, but I'm hearing that possibly anywhere from $35,000 to $4,000 increase could keep some officers. So that's what's happening.
I would like to add, because I still have a comment about your other, the
Yeah.
theater, but related to this is something that is on my catch list, and I'd already spoken to the manager about, which was that when we approved the career development plan, we had a discussion in that meeting about could we apply it retroactively to the rest of staff, to staff that's in place? And at the time, the manager's recommendation was no. And the board, when we had that discussion, the board voted to approve the career development plan as presented and follow up and look at more detail about what would it take to apply that plan to the staff who's already in place. So meaning that if somebody has trainings or courses or whatever that would make them eligible for career development, that they be allowed to receive the compensation. So the manager, and I have spoken to different board members about that, and so Mr. Harrell, can I ask you where we are or where you are in your discussion with department heads, and maybe having something that the board could look at with respect to that?
The staff is pulling together a retroactive look. Now, I gave them a time frame, and the time frame was 36 months, 3 years back. That was the starting point, because I don't know how far back the board wants to go.
Well,
so we're pulling that together, and my understanding from looking at minutes is that the personnel committee talked about going back retroactively, but it's never come to the full board for any kind of action.
So that's exactly it, because we don't have any concrete information. It would seem to me that you don't, essentially, you look at whoever's in the position, regardless of whether it's police department or other departments, that can be applied across the board. But if somebody has a certification that they would be eligible, or training or whatever, that they would be eligible for compensation for in their current position, then that applies, whether they earned that certification.
I'm saying that's the board's call is what I'm saying there.
We need to look at that.
I'll
do you
follow
see
whatever
how-
the advice of the board is.
How that could conceivably apply, that's something
right.
that we have information right now that conceivably the board could look at and apply that would impact current officers. But
We
Well-
need to look at that. We need to look at that urgently.
Yeah, and, the only thing I would say is that an officer did walk up to me in court, and, I was explaining all the stuff we've done, you know, in terms of trying to lift the salaries. And he said, well, the steps that y'all have taken literally gave me an additional $1 an hour on my salary. And that is not going to keep me in the police department. Now that's what the response to me was. The steps y'all have taken has only increased my pay $1 an hour.
But
And so the only thing I'm saying is, you know, we can keep letting, I mean, the officers are gonna leave. And I am of the opinion that if we can hold on to some experienced officers by a lump sum payment on their yearly salary, I really think we should really consider that. Otherwise, you know, we're gonna lose some additional officers.
Well, I think that was
Yeah.
the point of my, because we have a salary study that's gonna come back, and so ideally, so that's, I guess what I was thinking is if we look at retroactive career development for whomever is eligible, and look at instituting that as soon as possible, if
Yeah.
the manager recommends, depending on the costs and so on. Then you have the salary study that comes back ideally in a month or so, and that would give us, then we look at those salaries for everybody. That was just what I was thinking. I don't disagree with you in essence on that.
What you're saying, I'm sorry,
No, no, no,
I am so sorry.
You go and then Commissioner Lumpkins.
Quan, you're speaking, we're on a time frame. Are you?
Yeah.
Maybe we are.
I'm saying in the next, what I've heard, next couple of weeks, one officer is gone. And shortly thereafter, from their conversation, that there may be another experienced officer leaving. Now, you know, and I understand the danger and the precedent that we may be setting, but the alternative would be to retrain officers and the cost that will take. And then also ending up with what happened with inexperienced officers that happened in Memphis.
Right.
I mean, that, you know, those were inexperienced officers. And that's what happens when you have, and I'm not saying it justifies what they did, but they were pretty new officers. And I just feel like we are headed in a very difficult situation with the growth we're talking about, and we keep losing these experienced police officers. And I don't know if the retroactive stuff you're talking about, Mayor, give me some numbers.
So that's what I asked the manager.
We're pulling together those numbers, and I can report something back next Tuesday.
Or our retreat is this weekend, right?
That's right, so, okay,
At-
so,
At the retreat, well, I hate to put that pressure on you but by the retreat, is it possible we could have some figures on what that retro would do across the board, or at this time frame, just singling out the police department? Is there anyone in the police department, especially the ones with time served, would they themselves qualify for any retro pay? You know,
The staff's pulling that together and working with HR. I'll see what we can do for the retreat if possible.
Okay.
that would be great, and but wait a minute, so this is the order. It's Commissioner
Sip.
Lumpkins, then Khan, then Gilreath, so Commissioner Lumpkins.
No, you're fine. We keep talking, I'm not saying we have to wait until this comes back to do anything, I'm not saying this, but I just wanna know, do we have a general idea of when the salary study will be coming back in?
Yes, sir. The salary study, I'm sitting down with department heads next Monday at 3 o'clock to go over the results.
Oh, I didn't
So we
realize it was
have it.
already in.
That's already been scheduled to go over it with the department heads.
Okay. Okay, great.
I wanna get a feedback from my team
Yeah.
to bring something to you all.
Okay,
But-
excellent.
But we won't have it in our hands to look at it till 3 o'clock next Friday, Monday.
Okay, excellent. Did you have any
Yeah.
further is
Do
that?
we have a, like, do you have a timeline of when, after you, how long it'll
No, I
take to talk
don't.
to everybody?
It's gonna depend on the conversation we have,
The
Okay.
results.
you know, with the executive staff.
Okay, excellent.
One more
Then it
thing.
was Commissioner Khan and then Gilreath.
You know, we've had this conversation, I think, more times than I can possibly count. I'll say it as plainly as I can say it. What needs to happen, one, the retroactive, I'm perfectly fine with doing that as an immediate measure, you know, getting us some numbers and getting us some understanding of what we can do right now to stop the bleeding. The bigger point is that this board, none of us are experts at being police officers, firefighters, public works, any department that is here. The department heads, and to a degree the city manager, understand what the market rate is for any of those positions. As we move into the budget season, as we move into, you know, the next several weeks, what I want to see is a recommendation by the departments of what they think they need to pay the positions in order to fill the ones that they don't have and keep the ones that they have, whether that's something that could be worked in to their existing budget, or we might need to up a budget line. But let's make that decision as part of the budgeting process. I need to understand from the experts, what does it take to get a police officer? What is the market rate? Because whatever we decide up on this board doesn't mean a damn thing. It matters what the market pays police officers. They can go to any jurisdiction, and this probably is applicable to most positions, or all positions. There's no one going through training. There isn't a pipeline of new recruits for nearly any position. So we're going to have to get creative, and the folks who are doing this every day ought to be able to help tell us. I know we have a salary study coming. I think we should look at that and help guide their decision, but I think we also need to look and speak to our folks and make sure, because they're the ones with their hands in the dirt who understand where this is going. As I look at our departments, all our departments, we have a number of folks who are in the twilight of their careers. There's nobody coming up behind them. There's not a one person in any of our departments where we've got that pipeline of talent. So we need to figure out from the subject matter experts what they think is the best option to help them out.
That's what our discussion's gonna be next Monday at 3 o'clock, is along those lines. I would like to also point out that this is not something that's happening, this is something that's happening all over the state. When I was in the city of Wilmington just 6 years ago, 40% of the 900 people working were within 5 years of retirement. And local government across the state is running into this, people aging out and retiring, and there's nobody in the pipeline behind.
It's a national issue.
Exactly.
And but we have to be prepared. We can't just go like,
Yeah,
well,
you do.
you know, we're going to have to pay.
Yeah.
Might as well tell us what the number is now, because been doing this now it's gonna be for a year having this conversation. Let's figure out what the number is, and let's figure out what the plan is to make it happen. I mean, we got to address it. It needs to be address it. We will, but it needs to be a prominent part of our budget conversations. We need to make sure we understand what we think those are going to be and how that's going to affect us in the coming, not just the coming year, but the coming years, as we look at the vacancies that will come.
It will have a multi-year effect
Oh,
too,
sure.
because those are perpetual numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, excellent. Commissioner Gilreath?
Well, The questions that I have a direct impact on some of the money issues that we're talking about. I was surprised when their longevity wasn't where it needed to be. And my question now becomes, has that been paid out? You know, and whether or not additional sick and vacation leave have been granted to all the employees that we've already approved that. Some of the training and the merit-based training that we talked about, have we implemented that? The career growth development, you know, maybe there's not a difference between that and merit, but has that been paid out? And then the salary study. And then your question, Mr. Harrell, you said that you were gonna talk to your department heads on Monday about the results. But what if the results are, you're where you're supposed to be? I mean, so why, or you need to be bumped up?
And I don't.
I'm not. I didn't follow.
I don't have answers, you know, tonight.
Right.
We'll be getting the actual pay study that was conducted, and we'll see what those numbers are at 3 o'clock next Monday. But I'll be happy to provide the numbers the numbers that you're asking for, but I have to have some time to put that together.
Right. And some of these things they've provided. Well, I mean, we have some of these.
Well, I
numbers.
will find out what
Yes,
has
sir.
been provided as well.
I think we can ask Mr. Ung about the longevity bonuses that the board approved, that change
Increase the percentage.
that the board approved for longevity awards. Has anything been done with that?
Effective January 1 of this year, yes.
Okay, so that has gone into effect and employees are receiving their increased
On their
longevity
anniversary-
pay.
on their anniversary
On their
dates.
anniversary day.
Good.
And it's only those who anniversary date of hire, as of January 1.
Okay.
So yes, so it's
What-
being implemented.
I mean, is that the former employees? We increased it across the board, or we just increasing it just for the new people coming on board?
No.
Just for anyone who
Across the
has,
board.
for example, my longevity, was not in effect with the new approved because it was October 25th. So I got the old rate. And so January 1, whoever's anniversary is, as of January 1, got the new rate.
So anybody in 2023, when your anniversary date comes, it's not just
We're
new
not talking
employees.
just new employees. We're
It's-
talking everybody's on the rate.
Yeah.
So every employee now is getting that bumped up anniversary date longevity is all I'm asking.
Yes,
Right.
January
That-
1.
Starting in January 1, and then so if somebody's in December of this year, they get theirs in December.
Yes.
Exactly. Okay, so it's across the board and everybody's getting it.
Great. Okay.
Okay, I'm good.
Commissioner Toby, you had a comment?
I just wanted to say something. We were talking about these career development payments and things like that. I think we really missed an opportunity. We took advice from a previous manager. We didn't vote on it at that time. And we've just been kicking it down the road. And personally, I think the board has let the police department down on any department when it comes to career development payments.
So that retroactive.
So we should be looking at that as a matter of urgency
Right.
to get this implemented. We really should.
So we ought to hear something back, if not at the retreat this coming weekend, by the board meeting.
Yeah, I hear you all loudly. I will do it.
That's excellent. So we're good now?
Yep.
Okay, I just wanna, and I come right after Commissioner Bridges. Normally I wait to the end, but because he made some comments about Granville Little Theater and the auditorium, and I think I forgot one of them, but, Ms. Cheek, do we use do we not donate the use of the building out at the Granville Street Park to, He Matters and Unwrapping the Gift?
Yes. And that's sort of a programming thing. It's for us to contract with them to have a program out there that we don't have the capacity to provide.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so
We do donate.
I just wanted to
good.
make that point,
Yeah.
and in conjunction with that, I do think, not to
I-
discount your
I'm aware of that program.
comment or Commissioner Bridges, but I believe there is a little bit of a difference in not charging a group for something versus allocating funds for them.
Right.
And I know in past years, and I don't know what is the current situation, since McGregor Hall was built in Henderson, but I know, up until that point, all of the plays by, the rec theater there it was actually the recreation department that was,
And that was my
running that theater program, so the burden of the work was on the Henderson Vance Recreation Department, and they were, of course, providing all of the space at no cost, because they were actually doing the work. So I just point that out as kind of a little bit of a difference between allowing somebody to use a space versus giving them budget money, but that
Right.
doesn't discount the
And-
value
and
of any of
Jackie,
your
and that
comments.
is exactly where I was going, and that's why I wanted it to be given to Tina so that it could be dealt with in the very fashion that you just said. I mean, so that's all well and good, but it still needs to be, I mean, and if you wanna talk about the facility there, we're talking, maybe it can accommodate 30 people.
Right.
It has 2 toilets in there, and it's run down, and it's about 10 parks there. That's about it. And no on the street parking. I mean, so we're not comparing apples and oranges here. I mean, but your point is well taken, and there are a lot of people who are doing good things and supporting and picking up the pieces here in this community. I mean, there is. So I hear you, but it's still.
Oh, and I wasn't saying
Yeah.
not to have
Right.
further discussion, I just was pointing out that one difference. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I think you've all, on that end, covered anything, but I piggyback Commissioner Bridges on the urgency for our police department. I would hate for us to get in a situation of having all babies in uniforms. Any entity, any division, any branch of our employment needs some wisdom with it, and that comes with years of service. So any department, we need to do what we can to maintain our senior employees until they decide that they're ready to retire, and it's not because of lack of financial support. And hopefully all of our employees are aware of the total package and what the total package means. All of our employees are aware of the fact that come this past January 1, there was an increase in your longevity. All of our employees are aware that, hey, you got this degree or this certification, you can be compensated for it. You know, that they are aware of the total package that's being presented to them. A lot of times, I worked years for the state and never considered my total package. I never considered my health benefits. I never considered longevity in a monetary value, So we've got to educate our employees on the value of their value to us and what we're providing. I'm not saying that we don't have room to improve, because we do. We've got to improve with the economy. I mean, gee, look at the price of eggs. That's it. We've got to do what we've got to do for all of our employees. But right now, it seems like the police are at the front door and they're knocking. So hopefully, out of our retreat, also we come up with concrete, actionable methods of doing what we need to do.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam. Commissioner Lumpkins.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna have to get creative with this police issue. I mean, like everybody else said, been talking about this for a long time.
Long time.
We've tried to do things and, you know, I think we need more information about what it's gonna take. And I was hoping, you know, maybe we can really dig into it maybe at the retreat. I don't know if that's, I'm sure that will come up, cause it's one of the biggest issues we have, but, you know, I'd like to, you know, challenge everybody maybe to, you know, do some homework and maybe we can bring some creativity and ideas to, and discuss them together at the retreat maybe. You know, since it's such a national issue, I'm sure some other places have done things that we don't know about that may have worked, but didn't work. So I'll definitely be looking into that. And as for the theater use, I was kind of brainstorming. I definitely agree that, you know, individual groups coming to the board asking for, you know, certain rates or whatever, gets kind of, you know, I think we definitely need to be fair across the board for that. So I was wondering, you know, maybe just brainstorming, could it be possible to use the ARPA funds to maybe waive theater rental fees for arts for a year? You know, in the wake of the pandemic, to help the art community or whatever you want to, however we want to frame it, to get back on their feet. That's just an idea. So that's all I got.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Harrell?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay, so with that, this meeting has gone much longer than we normally do, and it's now time to go into a closed. Our attorney, well, I guess I know that that's coming for closed session, so, do you have anything else besides a closed session, Mr. Burnett?
I was just gonna suggest that we have a closed session and we need to go into it.
We're on the same page then,
And,
absolutely.
just for the record though, we're going into closed session to protect the attorney-client privilege and to discuss potential litigation.
Okay, excellent, thank you very much, that was right what I was getting to, and so with that, the next North Carolina General Statute 143-318.2AS. And, so everybody else, thank you all for coming, we appreciate you, and hope you have a lovely rest of your evening. Thanks.
Oh, y'all need to stay. Y'all leave, I'm leaving.
This is not litigation, this is
We're
y'all
sorry,
saying-
that probably your back's hurt.